Hi, everyone. I had a really nice conversation with Dennis recently and just wanted to volunteer to share some of my lessons learned from the world of whitewater boating museums. Um, and part of why I'm doing this is I want to learn how this program works uh, so I can do a decent job of taking people on a little tour of all sorts of different things. But anyway, what I wanted to share with you is a quick tour of boating museums and some of the lessons I've learned from that. And a lot of this came about in a 3-year project when I produced the Call of the River. That's a documentary film on the history of whitewater boating around the United States, mainly canoeing and kayaking. And that took me all around the country. We did like 50 interviews, had footage from 50 different sources, 50 different sources of still images as well, and it was really super fun to produce. But I'll get to some of the museum-centric parts of that in just a second. Then secondly, recently I was involved at the World Championships for whitewater kayaking, and we put together a museum there, so I'll tell you a little bit about what we did there for that 5-day event. But first, back to the film. When we put together the film, one of our first stops was the Canadian Canoe Museum, and this is in Peterborough, Ontario, kind of near Toronto, and it's amazing. Just fantastically huge facility. In fact, they have a warehouse with 200 boats in it. The exhibits themselves, the exhibit room itself probably has 100 boats in it. But it's just fantastic. If you go into Google Images and just write Canadian Canoe Museum, you get a little sampling of just how extensive the place is. It's fantastic. And the quality of gear they have in there. This is an indigenous boat, 1700s, 1600s, I don't know. Pretty fantastic. But one of the amazing things there is beyond the gear, some of the best stuff is the photos that they have. And those photos really capture and tell a story about the evolution of canoeing. And I would think a whitewater museum could do well by stressing, just different ways to tell the story. Here's another great one, just the early trappers on the rivers. I mean, the rivers were the highways, and this makes it pretty clear. I'm going to see if this works. I don't know if it will. This is one of the films they have. It's not going to do it, I don't reckon. They have a canoe that was used for courting. It's got a record player in it even. Photos of the trappers from their finds. So that museum is just amazing. It's the best of the paddle sports museums worldwide that I've seen, and I'm pretty sure it's the most comprehensive. Oh, here's our little film. We're probably going to get several times. I was just too antsy. Well, there we go. Well, I'll show this to you in just a sec. Close a few of them. Here's that record player in a canoe. It came installed that way, so the canoe was designed for courting. You see they've got photos on the walls that sort of paint the rest of the picture. So on to the World Championships. This was in September in Western Maryland, the Whitewater Kayak Slalom World Championships. We put together a museum there. A small group of us put this together. The local college did some of the interpretation. And having a traveling museum for that sort of event was awesome, and it was very much needed and very appreciated. It's in this huge tent, and that yellow boat's the very first plastic kayak ever made at Tom Johnson Holoform. Some of you might know it. Go back there, there's the dancer. Quick and dirty little exhibits, that sort of thing. But all of this could have fit in a box trailer, and I wish we'd had a trailer right there. We could have loaded the whole dang thing in there. we would have been done with it. But pretty fantastic, all that we got put together there. We had a slide presentation area. People were doing quick presentations, historical presentations and films and that sort of thing. The Grumman Canoe, but two interesting sidelights here. You know, it's not just about the Grumman Canoe, but if you look carefully, they're the photos. And those photos really tell the story more of what's going on there. You know, the Grumman, the nymph of the Whitewater Wilderness, that's from an ad. And this sort of thing was quick and simple to put together, and boy, we're really sorry that we didn't plan it to have some legacy and make it a traveling exhibit. Another good one that I've been to is in Augsburg, Germany. That was the site of the 1972 World Championships, and that museum's racing oriented, but it's the only European one that I know of. Whitewater Hall of Fame has largely evolved to being nothing but an online celebration for the Hall of Fame inductees. It was originally going to be located in the U.S., and two different places have tried and failed at hosting a real museum around it. Of course, you all know the Powell Museum, and you probably know the plans and dreams for having a river heritage museum at the Grand Canyon. I think Tom Martin's probably one of the most principal in this, and they already have collected some boats, including Kirschbaum's Kayak that was the first down the Grand Canyon. Just wanted to give you a quick tour of some other places I know of. In Clayton, New York, the Antique Boat Museum. I've not been there. Wooden Boat Museum in Newfoundland. A lot of the wooden boat places there in the Northeast have boat building workshops and that sort of thing. The Woods Hole Museum, a little bit bigger boat sort of displays, but still small boats. This one's pretty neat, the Kayak and Canoe Museum in Portland, Oregon. It's pretty, I know the fellow there, and I've seen some of what they have display. I've not been there yet, hope to this year. So one thing I want to really point out is that you can have high impact with low effort. You know, the Salida Museum, I'll show you a picture of that in a second. Well, there it is. That Salida Museum, so to speak, just boats on the side of a wall. That gets a lot of attention. It needs a lot more love right now, but you know, that thing, with just some minimal effort, that would be a permanent display museum sort of thing. And that's maybe one of the most photographed parts of Salida. My experience at the World showed the need for a traveling museum. And I think a traveling museum could be a stepping stone to a bigger museum and would be popular and gain supporters. And then also I wanted to just reemphasize how photos tell the story. A friend of mine was the CEO for the U.S. Olympic Committee for many years, and Norm's job often was to give VIPs and funders and so on a tour of Colorado Springs offices. And you know, they'd have displays of the gold medals from this Olympics or that, and they'd have displays for the pair of cleats worn by track stars, and he said that, you know, the displays were one thing, but what really made his tour experiences possible was stories, not items, like photos and so on. And then finally, I wanted to mention that, you know, there's a lot of talk about disruptive things due to the web right now, and I think disruptive museums, like web-based museums, can be done for a very tight budget and get a pretty good reach as well. And I think that sort of fits the idea of having a traveling museum. Anyway, I want to leave you with a few photos that are favorites of mine, like this one from New York, putting together folding kayaks in a train. This is 1937. Of course, kayaks were kind of breakable in the early days. showed you this one already. That's a classic from the Peterborough Museum. And that's pretty much it. Anyway, if you have questions, I'd be happy to help you in any sort of way. Thanks very much.